Hello, my name is Mark, and this is Production Engineering. In this episode, we are going to talk about product design, when to keep perfecting and when to release it. When designing a product, it is quite normal to go through a number of iterations. In fact, I think it's quite essential for you to get a good product. So, how many iterations will you have to do? Well, that really depends on how complex your product is and how innovative it is, because you will need to test new ideas on the new market, or it may be totally new technology. Now, it is quite easy to get caught in this revision loop where you're constantly improving and improving and improving, and you actually never release a product. So, how do you avoid these problems? Now, it is hard to say exactly without knowing what product you have. But I would say here are some interesting tips or thoughts that you could use to think about when you're going to stop and release versus how far are you going to sit back and keep revisioning until the product is right for your customer. So how do I determine whether I need to keep revising or whether I'm going to release my product? So the first thing I would do is I would look at the product. So let's take, for example, something like this. This little thing here is just a cable clip. It zips up like that, and really, it doesn't have any function about it that would cause someone to lose their life. I mean, why would it? So, if this clip ever fails and the cable's let go, you would toss it away and get another one. Now, usually these will come in a packet of 10, so a failure of one in that packet of 10 may be annoying, but not detrimental, or it may not cause a bad review. Now, you may find out about it from your customer where something is faulty, and then you would go back and revise that product to improve something about it, but it's not something that can possibly kill you. Now, this little fella on the other hand, now this is an electrical tester. What we do with this, we actually see if there's power inside a power point or inside a cable if we're going to work on it electrically. So it's quite important to know that when I use this tool, it's going to work 100% every time. Now, there is other things about the testing lines that you do so you don't rely just on one item, but as you can see, it's quite critical that this thing works so that when you touch a wire, when you're working on a light fitting or something, that it doesn't actually kill you. Another reason to review your product is if that your sample comes back to you and your manufacturer tells you that it's really far more expensive to make this product than he originally thought. Now, why would this happen? You would thought you are dealing with an expert. In manufacturing, whenever you make the first of any type of product, you don't quite know how much it's going to cost to make. You have some idea, and the more experience you have, you obviously know better, but you're never quite sure, especially if a customer comes to you and says, I want this finish. I've seen this finish somewhere else, and you haven't had that experience. And then, they may ask you or tell you that, it will rust or it will break because of the surface finish or something like that affects the material. So that's one of the reasons you may need to revisit your design and say, okay, we may have to change materials, or we may have to change the application of a coating or something like that to stop things from failing in real life when the product is released. Another reason might be that your manufacturer might come back to you and suggest changes to your product, because when manufacturing a product, you will find that you are using way too much material and there's quite a lot of waste. So if you look at your screen right now, you'll see this table. Now this table has got three parts. It's got two legs and it's got the main tabletop. When we look at the tabletop and apply it to the type of sheet that we use to make these kind of tables, you'll find that there's very little wastage, and I've highlighted in red what that wastage is. Now, when you look at the leg itself, you'll find that there's quite a lot of wastage, because the specifications were that the table had to be made out of one piece. We didn't want any joins. Now, since the joins are under the table, you're probably not going to see them. So you may want to revise your design and actually put cuts into these legs so that when we actually lay these out on top of a sheet, you get a much better yield of material. Now, the difference is that if we only use one leg per one sheet without any cuts, we're using one sheet per leg. But when we use the system where we cut the leg up, we actually get 6 times more yield out of a sheet of plywood, for example, in this table, that it certainly reduces the amount of cost of materials. So that may be another reason why you might want to revisit your design. So now we come back to the original question. When do we stop revising? And it really depends. It really depends on the complexity of the product. Is the product safe? Is there anything that needs to be revised critical? Will it cause problems with your customers? Will it affect your bottom line? These are the things that you need to be thinking about. To tell you the truth, you are always going to be revising things. Now, if you have great ideas, you can always put them into the new revision of your product in the next production run. So you could call it Mark 2. You obviously will identify to the customer that this is slightly different to what you had released before. You perhaps could charge more money for it. Now, but you need to make sure that reverse compatibility with your previous product, if that's what matters, is also looked at. So if something becomes smaller or bigger, that the customer really wanted that. So if they really go and buy Mark 2, and they were expecting something pretty much the same as Mark 1, and that creates a disappointment, that could cause a problem for you. But if your customer has been asking that, okay, your product is awesome, but it's a little bit big, and you reduce it in size and everyone's happy, that's a perfect outcome for everyone. So the truth is, you are constantly going to be reviewing your product from pretty much day one. You're going to be doing it on the next order and the next order and the next order until the product dies. Now, there is always some way to improve. So I hope this was helpful. Now, if you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. My name is Mark, and this has been Production Engineering.